Curious about developing your psychic gifts? Then this video is for you. Welcome back to the channel, everyone. My name's Fola, and here on Deep Mind Squared, we talk all things magical practices and altered states. And in today's video, we are going to dive into psychic gifts, what that might look like, what are the benefits, and maybe some of the risks that could come with developing these type of gifts, and also some different tools that I've used to support my own journey in really connecting to my psychic abilities. So make sure you stay tuned in until the end, where I will share with you some of those ways that might help you on your journey too. Before we get into all this, make sure you hit that subscribe button and the notification bell so that you're updated on future video releases. And feel free to let us know in the comments, what psychic gifts do you have? Where would you like to develop or further those gifts as well? Because I think it's possible for us to have all the gifts. Just like we have our 5 senses, there's also the ability to awaken all the clairs, from clairaudience, clairsentience, clairvoyance, and so on, until we can have like the full spectrum of our gifts open. But you know, we all operate in different ways. And so this is an important first start when it comes to talking about psychic gifts, is the fact that you might have one particular way or a couple different ways in which you really connect to energy. But overall, developing a psychic gift is about being able to tune into your intuition. What are the messages that you're picking up through the energy that exists around you? This can show up in the dream time. It can show up in understandings or just inner knowings about what someone's going to say or about someone's life. You might hear information, and this is where we get these different terms: clairsentience, clairvoyance, clairaudience, and so forth. If anyone knows what it is it clair olfactory? I don't know what it would be for being able to smell, but even that is a psychic gift. So why might you want to develop these skills? I think if you're someone that is curious about seeing how you can start to tap into energy and understand your life, and also hold space for others to start to understand themselves a bit better, then it's important to develop these skills. And it comes naturally. This is one thing I've learned. You know, we might start in one area, but as time and the years progress, we start to really understand our ability to translate energy. And that's ultimately what psychic gifts are about. Whether you see energy through clairvoyance, you might see auras, you might be able to see energy structures, you might be able to get a sense of the different colors and the textures of energy through the sort of visual sensing. Or you could be a clairaudient, where you might hear messages, and some people hear it through their own voice, or they might hear it through other voices, maybe receiving messages from guides and other beings that they connect with. The 2 other ones that I think really stand out and sometimes aren't taken maybe as seriously is the whole concept of clairsentience and claircognizance. Clairsentience is when you feel energy in your body. It can show up through, the good vibe feeling that you might sense. It could be tingling or hot or cold sensations. It's like the body being able to sense the energy that's going on. Whereas claircognizance is when you just know something. As someone who identifies with the clairsentience and the claircognizant sort of patterns of psychic gifts, I can tell you that it's just a really weird experience where all of a sudden you just know something about someone, and it can be kind of confusing. At least that's how I find it, where it's wait, how do I know this information? Did I dream it, or did someone tell me this already? And it can leave us with some interesting conversations. Now, I'm sure there's a whole bunch of other psychic gifts out there. Feel free to let us know if there's something that you know or have experienced that maybe isn't shared here. But I think overall, it's the ability to become aware of the energy and what the information from that energy is trying to tell us. So what are some of the other benefits of being able to develop these gifts? I mean, right off the bat, if you can translate or interpret information that's coming in, you're probably more likely to respond in a way that's much more clear, perhaps a little safer, and it'll leave you feeling empowered. So I think overall, it's beneficial for ourselves as we operate in this world, in this reality, because we're able to better kind of interpret and then make the decisions that are best for our lives. Like I mentioned, if you're someone that wants to hold space for others, really tapping into these psychic gifts can be a way to really hold safe space for another person. And also, you become a channel for information to be shared to someone who might not be at the same place in terms of having developed psychic gifts. And I don't at all mean this to say that there's only certain people who can do this. I mean, obviously, there are some folks who are just like really gifted. You know, you have these channelers and these mediums, and it's just where they operate, and they do it wonderfully. But I think it's important to remember that anyone and everyone can develop these gifts. It's a matter of us trusting and listening to that intuition and starting to really test and see, okay, am I accurate with that? Or where have I maybe taken the wrong path or made a decision that wasn't really the best choice for myself? I know for myself, working with a bunch of different folks, even prior to kind of becoming aware of like the spiritual sort of aspect of mental health, I was really tapping into some inner knowing when it came to assessing and supporting clients within like crisis work. And looking back now, I can be like, okay, I can see I was tapping into that inner knowing, to the sensations in my body, and I could pick up on things. I just didn't really have a name for it, you know? But here now, knowing what I know, I can say, oh, it just makes so much more sense. I'm much quicker at picking up on information that's coming in. And I've kind of, I guess, developed my own sort of like dictionary of when I see or hear or sense something, this is most likely what it's referring to. That this has been part of my, 8 years or so experience within the whole spiritual emergence. So how exactly do you start to develop these gifts? Again, no matter which gift we're talking about here, I think the number one thing about developing this gift is to begin to trust it. Even when you have this like inner feeling of doubt, that's most likely the ego trying to create some resistance for you. So what I like to do and what I encourage people in the Reiki classes I teach is to just share, have a conversation about what is showing up for you. And you don't have to tell people, okay, you know what, Spirit just said to me in my ear that this and this and this happened, and it has to be gospel truth. You can just say, I'm getting the sense that maybe this might be coming up. Do you have anything to add about that? And, it's about putting it back into the other person. And it may or may not make sense to them in that moment. That's one thing I've learned is sometimes I'll speak something to someone during a session and they're like, no, that's not at all the case. And then days, weeks later, they're like, oh, now I understand what you meant by that. Or this is what showed up in the reality. So it's kind of interesting to just, open up to trusting what is coming in intuitively for you. Now, there's so many books out there. You can find information online on different ways to develop these gifts or these skills of psychic ability. And, when it comes to seeing energy like the auric field or energy field around someone, one of the top ways I'd say that can really help kind of give you a sense of what it might be like to look at energy is to have like an opportunity with a friend or even with yourself and hold up your hand or get your friend to stand in front of like a blank white wall. And then what you do is just kind of ease your vision, looking maybe just past the person and just breathe, relax, and start to see what you notice within that energy field. Some people very quickly will pick up on colors. Most of the time, it seems as though energy just kind of is this like vibratory emission coming off the person's body. But keep developing this. Do this for several minutes at a time. Take turns with each other and see what happens. I will share a quick story here about a friend. When I was in high school, we were trying to develop the ability to see auras, which honestly back then I don't really know what I was thinking. But her and I would do these sort of practices and nothing ever really happened for me that I noticed. But I remember one day in our physics class, we were like sitting there and all of a sudden my friend just like went flying out of her desk. And I was like, what's going on with you, man? And later on she said, yeah, she was just sitting there and all of a sudden she saw someone's aura like just completely red, like expand. And it's like threw her for a loop. She wasn't expecting it. But I always think back to them like, oh, like what if it can just be switched on like that? How can we do that? And I really do think it's just through practicing more consistently. Now, another way to try and see auras could be as simple as looking out a window and just staring at the trees. You've probably seen that like kind of fuzzy outline around the trees. That is their auric field, their energy field. So give it a try, see what you notice, and in time, I'm sure you'll develop that. When it comes to clairsentience, that feeling of the body, or even the ability to just know, I would say it's really important that you practice mindfulness and meditation. Also, body-based exercises, somatic experiencing, yoga, breath work, anything that's going to tap you into the present moment and really starting to awaken your ability to connect to the body. We have to be able to sense like almost every little part of our body, or at least have the willingness to develop that connection. Otherwise, you're not going to be able to sense what's showing up inside. And when it comes to being able to know the information, we have to be able to be present enough to recognize what thoughts or awarenesses are showing up in our mind, in our consciousness. And so mindfulness, meditation, body-based practices can really be quite a beneficial support for that. Now, clairaudience is one that's a little more tricky because, the hearing voices can be pretty intense. For myself, I get hearing voices almost like it's in my own voice, though there are times I've had it where it's like outside, or it seems like almost like a foreign sort of energy. It might not be that you necessarily hear it. For me, it's like I can see the words or the statements, and I just like all of a sudden have this message internally. But I've also had it, especially when I dive deeper into like a lot of the Western Kabbalah, or like the different types of magical practices, where the hearing can become so overwhelming because it is coming from like all over the astral plane. And that can be really overwhelming. It happens very rarely. The one thing I would say is, if this is something with any of these clairs, any of these gifts that you feel like it's just too much, then it's probably best to take a little break, close the book, stop practicing, and do some grounding techniques so that you can really integrate what you're learning. The last thing we want is for someone to be overwhelmed with the psychic gifts that are showing up. And this oftentimes happens when people go through spiritual emergence or spiritual emergency. A lot of these experiences are oftentimes, dare I say, misdiagnosed as schizophrenia, schizoaffective, or bipolar disorder. And it's just people waking up to their own psychic gifts. And it's about you figuring out your translation, your dictionary of what the information means, and also being able to kind of shut off or dim down some of that information when you need to. Say, for instance, sleep, or go about your day-to-day functioning. Another great way to grow is to check in with yourself and validate what information's coming in. Some things people suggest are to keep track in a small little journal that you carry with you every day. Write out what type of intuitive insights are you getting, what information's coming in, and how. And then every week, maybe go through and see, hey, did that thing come true? Or what did that mean later on? And, having conversations with people that the information's about can be really beneficial as a confirmation for you. So keeping track that way can be great. Another really awesome way, if you're not really sure about listening to your intuition or trusting the information that is coming up, I would definitely suggest using something like a pendulum. This is like an example of a pendulum where you basically are holding it. You can also do muscle testing, body testing, and you would ask it a question after you've kind of set it to show you a yes, no, or a neutral response. You can find lots of information. Maybe we'll make another video about pendulums one day. Ooh. But yeah, pendulums can be great to support with confirming any type of psychic input or insights that you're gaining. And so we've covered a lot here. I think the main thing is for you to get out there and practice, but I do want to share one of the most important things I have learned on my journey. And that one thing is to let go of any expectations of gaining these psychic gifts. When I started my whole spiritual emergence experience, I was completely caught up with the idea of I need to see energy. I want to see the colors and the auras and all this cool stuff because, let's be honest, we are humans having this experience here. We are so physically and tangibly focused that we want it to be something that we can see in the palm of our hands. But what I learned is that eventually, the more I put pressure on myself to see energy, the less likely it was going to happen. And it probably took me a good 2 to 3 years to finally just let that go as an intention or as a goal of mine on my spiritual practice, and instead become aware of the gifts that were already innately within me, that were so much more easily connected to. And that was, again, the just knowing and the sensing of energy. And as I started to connect to that and see what was showing up and trusting what was showing up, speaking what was showing up to people when it was appropriate to do so, I started to not only maximize and really develop those gifts, but I started to see that the other gifts, the clairaudience, the clairvoyance, were starting to develop. And a huge key for me was, oh, I already do see energy. I just don't see energy in the same way as auras and colors all the time, though that has developed over the past couple years. The way I see energy is through almost people's actual physical bodies changing shape, me seeing how they hold themselves and so forth. It's very different than what I had hoped it would be. But again, just that reminder that whatever clair experience or gift that you have, it's important that you just trust that you were given that gift for a reason, that you get to develop it and to grow and access the others. And it's going to take time. We're not going to do this overnight or in a year. It's most likely is going to take your whole entire lifetime. But that's the beauty of being on this journey of life. And so have fun doing it. So that's all I wanted to say for this video. I'm going to be sharing a Reiki energy healing video to support you with developing psychic gifts, to open and trust your intuition. So make sure you check that out in our energy healing playlist on YouTube channel. And hopefully I'll see you in another video very, very soon. So until then, you guys take care.